food intolerance, or you've made a lifestyle decision to become vegetarian or vegan, it's easy to feel left out when it comes to parties and cooking shows. So that's why we've decided to come up with a cooking show just for people like you. Welcome to Alternative Chef. Each week, we're going to show you how to make some of your favourite comfort and practical everyday foods without using any gluten, dairy, soy, egg or meat. And how to include some more fresh and whole foods into your everyday diet. Because while we're not actually chefs, we do know a thing or two about cooking this way. And we're happy to share some of our secrets with you. If you're not sure what we mean yet, the best way to find out is to watch an episode. So stay tuned for the cheesecake episode. In our Alternative Chef kitchen, we have Anne. She's going to be making a dairy-free cheesecake. Sorry, Daisy.
Today I'm going to be making a dairy-free baked cheesecake. For the base, I'm going to be using some store-bought biscuits, which are available in supermarkets, and some Nuttalex. For the filling, we'll be using tofuti, some lemon, sugar, and 2 eggs. For the topping, we'll be using jelly, the jelly of your choice, it's entirely up to you, and some frozen berries on top. So first of all, we want to be putting the biscuits into the food processor, blitzing them, adding some melted butter. I have made it with homemade biscuits and they'll taste just as nice. It's just a matter of tipping that into your tin. Press it down with your fingers or the spatula. I tend to do a bit of both. You want to get it nice and firm on the base. So really give it a workout, knead it in, make sure it's nice and flat. Once you've finished pressing that into the tin, pop it in the fridge for 10-15 minutes while you make the filling. For the filling, scoop the tofuti into the food processor. I find it easier to give it a mix before adding the sugar and the eggs and the lemon juice, because then it combines, makes it a lot softer. So we're just going to add the sugar and give that a bit of a mix. And now we're ready to add the lemon juice and the eggs. You could use an egg substitute. Alright, so once they're all in together, we're going to scrape down the sides just to make sure everything's mixed well. Right, so once you've finished making your filling, we get this out of the fridge, which is your lovely set base, and we're going to tip the filling on top. And for those of you who have food intolerances and haven't been able to eat cheesecake for many years, you are going to just love this. The thing I found with using the Nuttalex as a base is because it is oils, it will tend to melt out a little bit, and the last thing you want to be doing is cleaning your oven. So putting it on a baking tray is going to make sure that the melted oils from the Nuttalex will stay contained. That will then go into the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes. You're going to need to watch your oven cooking times. Right, I've just taken that out of the oven. That needs to cool. Once the tin is cool, put it in the fridge and chill it. You want the cheesecake to be as cold as possible for when you're pouring the jelly over. So now we're going to make the jelly. First of all, put your jelly crystals in. Add about 200 mils of boiling water. I've actually put a teaspoon of gelatine in here. You could use a gelatine substitute if you like. The gelatine will make the jelly that little bit firmer for putting the berries on top and for staying on top of the cheesecake. Once that's dissolved, add another 250 mils of cold water and keep stirring the jelly. Now what we want to do is actually cool the jelly but not have it set. So we need to watch it very carefully, keep stirring. And I'm actually going to put it into a cool water bath. Right, now the cheesecake is nice and cool. The jelly is cool. It's just about starting to thicken. So we want to pour that over, keeping it in the tin so it's going to give you a lovely finish. Now that your jelly and your berries are in, that goes into the fridge until the jelly's set, nice and firm, and then you'll be ready to release it from the tin and plate up. There we have it, dairy-free lemon cheesecake.
So Lisa's doing a cheesecake that's dairy-free and soy-free. So what on earth do you use if you can't use dairy and you can't use soy? I'm told these coconuts will give us a clue.
Okay, so first I'm going to line my springform tin. This is a 20cm springform tin. So I'm going to line it with baking paper, and I've drawn in these little tabs. The tabs stop it being so bulky because I always find springform tins don't want to shut when I've got a whole piece of baking paper on there. For the base, I'm replacing the butter with coconut oil. At room temperature, it's actually a solid. In order to mix things together, we obviously need it in the liquid form, so I've just sat the amount that I need in hot water and it thaws pretty quick. And once it sets, it's going to solidify, and that will help replace the butter and be our base. And in the actual filling section, that's going to set and replace the need for a gelatin or some other setting agent. Okay, so to make the base, what we need is 2 cups of biscuits. This is a handy little hint that helps avoid the use of a food processor if you don't have one. So just get a little rolling pin and crumble your biscuits. For the really big bits, I just use the base. And now I'm going to add some lemon zest. That's the zest from about 1.5 lemons. You could add more if you like it really lemony, or you could add less. So I'm just going to blend that a little bit with a fork, and then I'm going to add 3/4 cup of coconut oil. Stir all of that in together. Just really want it to get moist so that it'll all harden up together and we won't have dry patches. So I'm just going to pour that into the springform tray. Pat that down so I have a consistent layer all the way around the bottom. Okay, so that's all ready. I'm just going to pop that in the fridge so it can begin to set while we make the filling. For the recipe, we need 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. You could use more or less. We like it lemony, so I add 2 lemons. Okay, so for the sweeteners, I'm going to use a natural sweetener today. Rice malt syrup. It's actually extracted from rice, and it's a low GI sweetener for people who are concerned about that. Pick a coconut cream which is as natural as possible. Scoop out the cream bit from the top. So I'm going to now add 1 cup of coconut oil. Okay, I'm going to mix that a little bit first. Now I'm adding the sweetener in. Okay, so now I'm adding the lemon juice. I'll add the vanilla and just blend it all together. Okay, so the base is nice and set. You can see that the coconut oil has started to solidify and it's holding all the biscuit base together. So I'm just going to pour the cake filling in on top of the base now. Just pat it out to make sure that it's actually all level. And we're going to pop that in the freezer just to help it start to set really quick, and then we'll put it in the fridge. Okay, so now we're going to make the topping. So basically we've got 2 cups of frozen berries here. I'm going to transfer just a little bit of that mix into the food processor. I'm going to use the dates. There's 8 medjool dates there, and I've pipped them and chopped them up just because I find it helps them blend better. Okay, so I'm just going to put the blender on to mix that together, and then I'll add the remaining berries in at the last. Thaw the berries first. If the berries are still frozen, they're going to freeze the dates, and it's going to be very, very difficult to actually blend it up and make the nice slurry to go on top of the cake. So I'm just going to add the rest of the berries and blend one more time. Okay, so the longer you leave the cake in the freezer while you're preparing the topping, the more set it'll be when you come to put the topping on top. So I'm just going going to pour this on top. Okay, so you wanted to spread that all around the tin so that you're covering the filling, and then pop it in the freezer. Okay, so the moment of truth, and voila. If you're in a really hot climate, I would serve it straight from the freezer and not keep it out too long, because the coconut oil will melt, as you saw when we were melting it to mix it all together. This is how you can make a cheesecake without dairy, without soy, without gluten, without eggs, without gelatin, and the only nut that I've used is coconut. It wasn't that hard, it didn't take that long, and it tastes pretty nice.
Next up, we've got Hayley. She's our raw vegan chef. Not that kind of raw. She's going to be showing us how to use some psyllium husks in her cheesecake.
Today I'm going to be making a raw vegan cheesecake made of whole food ingredients. So unlike conventional cheesecakes, I'll be using almonds for the base instead of biscuits. And I'll be putting a sprinkling of Himalayan sea salt. This just helps sort of balance out the flavours with the sweetness. I'm going to combine the almonds until they're like a biscuity, like crummy texture. It's really important to process it so it's really fine, otherwise the base is going to be really chunky and the dates won't combine, so that's what it looks like. Okay, now I'm going to be adding the dates. I've chopped them into quarters, so this will help evenly distribute around the almond meal. Okay, so now I should have fairly firm but sticky consistency, so this will form the base of my cake. Before I put the almond base into the tin, I'm going to be adding desiccated dried coconut. This just assists in the cake being easily released from the base, as sometimes it can stick. Now I'm going to be pressing the almond and date mixture into the base, and then I'll be pressing it down with my fingers nice and firmly. You can put this in the fridge for it to harden up, but it's not necessary because we'll be setting the whole cake in the freezer once the other mixture has been made. So I'll just leave this here. And for the cheese, I'll be using soaked cashews. I soak these overnight so that they are soft, and that when I blend up the mixture, the cheesecake is really smooth and creamy in consistency. Also, it helps remove any enzyme inhibitors like phytates, which block nutrient absorption. So first I will be adding the cashews to my Vitamix. Now, you don't need to use a Vitamix. Any high-powered blender or food processor will do. And next, the coconut nectar. So this is my low GI sweetener. However, you can use any sweetener of your choice. And I'm also adding a little bit of stevia. I've got 3/4 of a teaspoon. This just helps give it a little bit more sweetness without the calories. I've got 3/4 of a cup of fresh lemon juice. And I've got 1.5 teaspoons of ground up vanilla bean. So I've actually used the whole vanilla bean here. Some people just use the seeds, however that's up to you. Or you could use vanilla extract. Now I'm going to blend the mixture until it's well combined and smooth. Alright, I think that's about done. It's a nice creamy texture. So now that I've done that, I'm going to get my coconut oil, which I have submerged in some warm water just to melt it. So this is what's going to set the cake once I chill it in the freezer. So I'm just going to add that to my mixture. I think that's well combined now. It's nice and smooth. I'm going to add the last ingredient, which are psyllium husks. I've got 1.5 tablespoons here. It's important to add the psyllium at the end just to make sure that everything is well combined, because the psyllium can clump up and make the mixture a bit gluggy. So I'm going to be pouring that onto my almond and date base. I'm going to be smoothing that around. Put the cake into the freezer for a minimal of 3 hours. Alright, now I'm going to be making the berry coulis topping. So what I'll be using is 2 cups of frozen mixed berries which have been defrosted. I've got 8 medjool dates which I've de-pipped and chopped into quarters, and 2 tablespoons of psyllium husks. So first I'll be adding the berries to the food processor. Next I'm going to be adding the medjool dates, so I'll just chuck them in. And the last ingredient I'll be adding is the 2 tablespoons of psyllium. And there we go, that's the berry coulis topping. Alright, so now that the cake has been sitting in the freezer, it's allowed the top to set a little bit, so I'm able to pour the berry coulis on top. So now I'm going to pop this in the freezer to set. Okay, so the cake has been sitting in the freezer for over 3 hours now, so it's ready to be removed from the cake tin. It's got a nice clean edge because it's had 3 hours to set. It's nice and firm. Now I'm just going to remove the cake from the bottom of the base. It should come up fairly easily because I sprinkled coconut at the bottom. So I'm just going to get under there. There we go. So there we have a raw vegan friendly cheesecake.
Next in our alternative chef kitchen, we've got Glenys. She's going to be making a lemon cheesecake. Is that right? With no lemons and no berries.
I've got the challenge today to make a no lemon cheesecake, also without berries. For the foundations of the biscuit layer, I'm going to use buckwheat. Buckwheat is not, in fact, related to wheat. It's a fruit seed which is related to rhubarb and sorrel. So I've got my dried buckwheat, and I've pre-soaked 2 tablespoons of buckwheat for up to 2 to 8 hours, just to give the base some moisture, because if all the buckwheat was soaked beforehand, your base would be too soggy. Next we're going to add some sultanas or raisins, or you can use a combination of both to give your base some sweetness. To give the base some flavour, I've got some spices which I'm going to add. I've got some nutmeg, some cinnamon, some Chinese 5-spice, and a pinch of salt, and I've chosen to use Himalayan salt. And now I'm going to give it a quick blend, and we'll see whether it needs any more water. So this needs a little bit more fluid, and to get the right consistency, I'm going to add a little bit of date water, and this will also give it a little bit more sweetness. To make your own date water, cut up some dates. I prefer to use medjool, and take out the pips and pop them into a bowl with some water. You can leave it there between 10 minutes and to overnight. The longer you leave it, the sweeter the water is. Just going to give it another blend, and now we've got it like we want it, we can roll it out onto our base. A handy hint, if you want to stop your dough sticking to the rolling pin, pop some grease-proof paper over the top and pat it down into your base and then roll it. You can just go around and trim off the excess. How do we make this cheesecake taste lemony without any lemons? The secret is verjuice. Verjuice comes from grapes, so if you have any problems with citrus, this well could be your answer. To make the verjuice taste lemony, I'm going to pop it onto the stove to boil and reduce to approximately half. We're going to use agar instead of gelatin to help set this cheesecake. And I'm just going to add this in while the verjuice is still hot. And as you can see, that's already dissolved. Like Hayley, for the cheesecake, I'm going to use soaked and drained cashews. Instead of the usual sweeteners, I'm going to use pre-soaked dates and some date water. I'm going to add in a pinch of salt, and now to add in our verjuice And to give our cheesecake some added flavour, I'm going to use some vanilla. I'm going to use the pods, or you could use some vanilla extract instead. And now we're going to blend it up until it's all smooth. This is perfect. I've just taken the base out of the freezer, and now we'll take off the wax film. That's set really nicely. And now we'll load on our spring load tin, and we'll pop the mixture, the cheesecake mixture, on top of the base. I'm just going to give it a smooth top, and to make sure we've got no air bubbles, I'm just going to bang it on the board a couple of times. Cover it with some wax paper and back in the fridge or freezer to set. Some people have problems with the additives in commercial jellies. So our alternative jelly setting agent is agar agar. It comes from seaweed, so it's also vegan and vegetarian friendly. We've got 2 cups of boiling water. We're going to add rice malt syrup and dissolve that. And once that's dissolved, we're going to add into the mixture our agar agar powder. And to give our jelly some colour, I'm going to add in some beetroot juice. And now we're going to place this in our water bath to cool down. Just keep stirring. We don't want this to set until we've put it onto the cake. I've taken the cheesecake out of the freezer. It's now set, and the jelly is ready to be poured on top. And pop it back into the fridge or the freezer to set. It's pulling away nicely with a sharp knife going around the edges. And there you have it, lemon cheesecake without lemon. It's dairy free, made with whole foods for your whole family to enjoy.
Making these cheesecakes with alternative ingredients is all very well and good, and they do look fantastic, but how do they taste? We thought we'd invite a few friends over to try. I'm not waiting for them.
Very nice, for sure.
The middle of this feels, when I eat it, a bit like the softness of marshmallow, and it's just got a really beautiful mouthfeel.
The raw one, it is very nice. It's nice and dense too. So, no, it's that good that we just stopped short of licking the plates.
We did.
I know.
How do you feel about the taste of the no lemon cheesecake?
I love it. That would be fabulous. I know a number of people who would love to eat lemon cheesecake but can't because it gives them migraines.
Yep. Because I've just eaten 4 slices of cheesecake and I don't even feel bloated or full or sick. I actually feel like, which one am I going to try again? So if it only takes me the same amount of time to make a healthy one versus one that's loaded with sugar, I'm going to make the healthy one.
Yeah.
But which one? I'll have to try them all again.
Do you think after tasting them you would actually try and make them?
Absolutely.
Definitely. No,
And you don't have to have a food allergy or problem to enjoy those. They're brilliant.
No, my father would have just picked up the whole plate and walked.
They're great. It's great to have an alternative.
So there you have it, 4 very different cheesecakes, 4 very delicious cheesecakes. If you want more information, visit the website. And if you think that was good, stay tuned for more. Hayley's our raw chef. Do that again. Oh dear, that's just sad.
Make it all sound very exciting.
Okay, because I'm not making it exciting, am I?
It's not sitting.
It's not. So there we go. Handy tip. Your agar needs to be in date or your jelly won't set.
That is finally thickening up a bit, but
Just use 2 packets of agar.
for a relatively low-fat cheesecake.
The main source of calories in this cake is not from the nut, it's from seaweed. we're gonna laugh or we cry. But crying's good.